Okay, thank you everybody for joining us. Welcome to another EdTech Meetup powered by BongoHive and Injini. Injini is the first EdTech Incubator in Africa. They're based out of Cape Town, and BongoHive were in Lusaka. Technically, we would be having this meeting at our premises in mass media had it not been for COVID, but nonetheless, we shall make do with it. So the essence of these EdTech meetups is pretty much to create a space where EdTech enthusiasts and create a community of people who are interested in education and technology, and to discuss ideas, to know what is happening. And today we are privileged to have Owen Kawanda and Felix Mwenge with us to talk on a very interesting topic, and I think which is pretty much relevant. It's almost as if we should have had this meeting in March, as if we prophesied it, but because of COVID, we had to postpone it. So the topic for today is, could e-learning shape the future of work? We are trying to get an understanding of how the future of work will be shaped by the current trend in e-learning and the current pretty much upscaling of e-learning. So we will start with a presentation by Owen, and then we'll have Felix, and then we'll have a quick chat, and then I will open up the floor for any questions. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to use the chat. And then at the end of their presentations, I'll be able to ask them, and then we will take it from there. But without spending much time, I will hand over to Owen to first of all introduce himself and give his presentation regarding, could e-learning shape the future of work? Owen.
All right, thank you very much, Peter. I'm excited to be here, and greetings to everyone. Thanks for joining us today as we discuss the impact and how e-learning can really shape the future of work. So starting with Peter, and he has asked me to introduce myself. I'll try to be as brief as I can. For some of you already know me. Some of you colleagues, we follow each other on LinkedIn. I am a management and leadership advisor, and what I focus on basically is helping companies, employers, on how best they can get the best out of their employment relationship with their employees. I did my first degree at the University of Zambia in public administration with psychology. Then I went on to do a master's at the same university, and my master's was on neuropsychology. And over time, what I've focused on is to build myself around the areas of management, leadership, and psychology. Currently, I have over 12 years of practical senior management experience, and I've been working with different leading companies in Zambia. I was in human resource consultants. Then I went on to work in microfinance with finance institutions. Then from there, I went on to work with companies in construction, and also working with a company that is focusing on government's commercial investments. I do provide, as I said, various management and leadership advisory services to employers. And I've also, I take time to publish in the newspapers as well as on the various online platforms. So for those of you who want to know my works, you can still check online. On LinkedIn, it's where I spend a lot of time. I have over 31 followers. It's interesting when we chat from the inboxes and so on. So basically about me, that's much it. For those who want to find out more, you can always go online and you'll be able to find out. So today, as Peter said, we're going to be looking at the e-learning and how it can shape the future of work. And what I wanted to do is to first of all start from where it all starts from. When we say future of work, what are we talking about? And when it is work, who are the parties who are involved? Because sometimes you can be doing something at the personal level, or you're working with colleagues. Are you actually calling this work, or is there any employment relationship? So I'm just going to walk you through quickly on some of the things that we focus on when we are talking about work from the human resource perspective. And so to begin with, let's look quickly. I hope you'll be able to see what we'll be sharing quickly. When we talk about employment, we are saying that we should have two parties, that is the employer and employee. And the employer is considered to be that individual who has entered into a contract with an employee, and they pay that employee for the service that the employee will be giving to the employer. And it's very important to know that by law, this is the way it is defined, meaning that you have a responsibility as an employer to take care of the employees. And on the part of the employees, for those of you who are employees, the law has defined that in return for wages or a salary or a commission, you give a service to the employer. And this, when these two things are happening, the employee is giving a service and the employer is paying for that service, it creates that employment relationship. Now, in an employment relationship, the employer sets out standards of what the employee needs to achieve. And they give instructions, they put standards and control of the employee. What this then means is that deliberately what employers do is to sit down before they bring in employees. You can be a startup, you start with few individuals. Normally what we advise is that sit down and think through your recruitment, because this will have an impact on your on how you are able to produce or the services you are able to give. So when you are normally for well-established institutions, they will have minimum and minimum qualifications that are required. They will set up the experience required for that position. Normally, when you are just starting up as an SME, you might not be looking at these things, but as you grow as a company, for well-established institutions, they look at these things. So when they set these minimum qualifications for each of the positions, what that means now is that at the time of recruiting, you'll be looking at hiring somebody who has the minimum qualification. They could have more, but you have the basis. So if it is a certificate you're looking for, it will be a certificate. If it's diploma, they can have something higher, but they'll have to have the diploma, and then you can hire them like that. The whole idea around these qualifications and experience is that it forms a basis for the employer to know that this individual has the capacity to undertake this kind of work. So that's why you have the job grades. If you've seen a number of companies, you have your MD, your directors, your chiefs, or whatever titles you use, way up to the general worker, the cleaner at the bottom. They have these grades and they have specific qualifications that they look for. I'm saying this because this is what applies a lot in those well-established institutions. What these do in this particular grade, when you say we need this qualification, we need this experience, it provides a basis for that employee to have the capacity to deliver in the job that you're hiring them for. Now, what this means also, the downside to this is that you will then find employers saying that because we hired this person who had the qualification and the experience, then they don't see the need to invest in that person anymore. What then they start to think is that, yes, we hired you, you had the experience, so just do the job. But what is critical to take into consideration is that at the point you hire the person, you need to now start seeing that how do you as the company or as an SME or a big corporate or a company that is giving an institution giving a service, how do you take yourself forward? And this is what brings us to a key component of you as a company, you need to know where you want to go. By analyzing where you are and analyzing where you want to go, you will then be able to see what kind of skills and knowledge do your employees who you have already, what kind of skills and knowledge should they have to help you to get to where you want to go. So this is where now you start looking at issues of training and development. Yes, they would have been qualified when you're hiring them, or they didn't even qualify. But then now you have to see the kind of skills they need for them to deliver even better in the roles that you're hiring them for. So that's why it's important now that we start talking about issues around training. And when we are now talking about issues of training, we're then saying as the employer, you now need to start investing in training your employees so that they have those skills that you need. For instance, if it is to increase their ability on customer care or customer service, or them being able to handle certain technology that is coming, or them being better in terms of management and leadership skills, you need to invest in training them so that they are better at what they are doing. When that happens, you can then be assured that you get better results from your employees. So then what starts to happen as an employer now, you start to figure out how do you do the training now? How do you, because there are so many ways in which you can do this. You can have workshops, where you can have trainers, they come to your company, you can send your employees to workshops. Now, what has been determined is that some of the traditional ways of doing training and development for the employees, you find that it's very costly. This is the first thing. Number one, it is very costly because you have to, there are institutions where when the employee is going to a workshop, they have to pay them, those daily subsistence allowances, which some of the employees actually look forward to a lot. There's payments for fuel, or there's lodging, and so many other costs that come with training. So, and this is why you find that some of the employers start to be reluctant to send their employees for further training because of those costs. Then secondly, there's issues around disruption of work. So in terms of disruption of work, you'll be looking at when you send a certain section of employees to train outside or whichever place where you have said they need to do this training from, you find that the service that you are supposed to give, or it starts to affect your production targets because the people are not there to do the work. So this is also something that puts a challenge and it discourages some of the employers from investing in training. So there's also issues of time. There are so many issues that go with the traditional way of training employees. And this is why you find that it becomes a challenge. Some employers will simply say, we will not do this. But what we would like to encourage would-be employers is that they should start thinking around investing in training the employees using, for instance, e-learning that we are now talking about, because it helps in taking care of those challenges that I was talking about. You'll be able to get the best out of the employees as well as they are doing their training. My colleague will be talking more in details about the implementation of e-learning. I just want to bring it to your attention that as you run your institution, you need to make sure that you focus on creating a company that is called a learning organization, meaning that you know that we're living in a time when there are a lot of dynamics. You cannot say because we were doing things like this in the past, so we are okay, we are comfortable. You will be run over by competition. You need to ensure that your employees are getting the skills and knowledge that they need so that they're able to execute their works. And in the end, this increases your production. The e-learning that we'll be talking about, and my colleague will be handling the next part, it's been found to be flexible. The challenges I was talking about in terms of the time, in terms of disruption, you find flexibility. You can allow employees to do this online using computers or doing it online, or they are set up for a specific period of time. Cost effective is one of the things I talked about. There are huge costs that come with the usual way of training, the traditional method. And also with e-learning, you find that you'll be able to scale it up. So you can actually have more and more employees benefiting from the learning because you can easily scale it up compared to the other type of learning that we see being used in workplaces. And one of the challenges that also people, especially employers, have is when you send employees for training and you have no idea if they're actually attending the training. Sometimes we chat with colleagues in the HR fraternity. We see that sometimes people might go for training, but really they're going shopping or sightseeing. At the end of the day, they come back and you are having challenges to measure the effectiveness of your training. But e-learning helps you to tell the number of hours they have put in, also how much of the work, the coursework that they needed to do. So e-learning really becomes very critical in terms of how you handle the training that you need to do in a company so that you get the best out of the employees. We'll quickly and easily wrap up by saying, when it comes to e-learning, you will see that when your employees are getting the training that they need, you will not have disrupted the production or your service to the public if you're into service delivery. At the end of the day, the employees get to be equipped with the skills that they need and the knowledge that they need to help your company to take your company to the next level. And in the end, you will see that you get more benefit in terms of the bottom line. You see that you have productivity going up. You have employees being more engaged because they see now that the employer is investing in them. And so e-learning really is critical, and is one of the ways that we can encourage that employers start to consider to empower the employees with the skills and knowledge that they need, so that they're able to adapt to challenges as they come. For instance, now we are experiencing COVID for the first time, and now people are being forced to learn how to do things online. So in a nutshell, I wanted Peter to just quickly run through that, and I'll let my colleague talk more into the details of the implementation of e-learning and how other employers can benefit from e-learning in their workplaces.
Thank you very much, Owen, for that quick, brief introduction and presentation regarding the impact of e-learning and in the workforce and in the workplace. Once again, I'd like to encourage you, if you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat and we'll be able to address them shortly. Felix has given his own presentation regarding now the aspect of e-learning and how it probably affects each and every one of us and people who we know. So I'd let Felix to introduce himself first of all and then take it away. Felix.
Thanks, Peter. Can I be allowed to share my slides?
Have you shared your screen?
Let me just try to do that now. Okay.
Okay, great. We can.
Yes, I did. Can you see it?
Yes.
Perfect. So let me begin by saying good evening to everybody in attendance. And thank you, Peter, for this opportunity. Is my video on?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I can see myself. Okay, and thank you so much for this opportunity to speak at this important event. I know that we had discussed this issue earlier, but we weren't able to due to COVID. And now I think it's the right time, like you said, because e-learning is here, or e-meeting, whatever you can think of. So the big question on the table is, could e-learning shape the future of work? And my colleague Kawanda, who's a human resource specialist, has ably tackled the issues of employment expectations from employers and the like. Now, I would briefly like just to talk about what really do we mean by work? And when we say, could e-learning shape the future of work, what is the future? And what is work? So usually the future is actually context-based. If we are speaking at the level of the nation like Zambia, so the future could be your vision 2030. That's your future, what you want to see by 2030. Or you can use the 7 NDP as the benchmark. So your future becomes the 7th National Development Plan, because the future also is not indefinite. It's actually definite and it's time bound. Then work. In the ILO conventions, the International Labour Organization, usually work is a very broad term, which does not only speak about employment, but speak about any activity that you do as an individual, that enhances your well-being, a source of livelihood, but also, an activity that you are doing for own consumption. So basically, the issue of work is probably slightly broader than employment. So employment is a type of work. But in any case, whatever applies to work applies to employment. And like Kavanda has already put, you really, if you're an employee and you're in a workplace, your employer has a lot of expectations from you. Quickly, what is e-learning? So e-learning encompasses any form of telecommunications and computer-based learning. So we know telecommunications, at secondary school, the teacher who taught us about telecommunication, he said, the word tele means far. Okay, so telecommunication simply means you probably getting this lesson from somebody not in the same room as yourself. Somebody sitting in another place. Okay, so basically, e-learning encompasses any form of telecommunications and computer-based learning. Why is e-learning important? So by its nature, e-learning does away with the usual costs of traditional education without needing to build classrooms and providing study materials. E-learning can also give people the right to education potentially cheaper than the normal education that we know. So what we are basically saying is that if you want to learn online, or if you're an institution that wants to set up an e-learning platform, you don't need to build a 1x3 classroom block. You probably just need to have a computer and a reliable internet system and content, obviously, because your learners are going to look for content. Then you need professional trainers who are conversant with online processes and the like. So because of that, e-learning could be cheaper, especially if the initial costs are taken care of. So you just walk in, log in, and start obtaining your learning material. And we are saying that e-learning can give people the right to education, potentially cheaper. I've already said that, but let me just talk about the right to education. So every person, at least in Zambia, has a right to education. So you should be educated, I should be educated, and the state should support that education, which they do by building schools, developing curriculum, and the like. So we are simply saying that there's a chance that actually e-learning can make learning cheaper. Instead of building schools, building infrastructure, buying so and so many textbooks, you can go the online way, provide materials and adopt a platform that you can use. And you may just have an opportunity to grant education to more people than you would if you wanted to build infrastructure, physical infrastructure. Now, what are the requirements for e-learning? You probably know all these things, but I'm just going through them for obvious reasons, so that when I talk about the future of work and whether e-learning will shape the future of work, we are all on the same page. So e-learning will definitely require a computer, a working computer, not a dead one, a working computer with power, a powered working computer. Interchangeably, e-learning you can also access e-learning using a smartphone. So a smartphone is that phone that can connect to the internet and has the features of a computer. Then e-learning will obviously require internet accessibility. So you need to be online, because remember, it's telecommunication. So probably you are not in the same room with the person providing the material. So you really need internet accessibility, actually good internet accessibility, because if you have a lesson that's going to take 2 hours and your internet is not good enough, you'll have wasted your resources. You then need data. So by data, I mean internet data, that will allow you access, give you internet accessibility. So all these are the basic requirements for e-learning. There could be more things we can add, but basically you need these tools in order for you to be able to participate in an e-learning session. And these I'm giving is from the demand side. That's you as a learner. You need to have this. The people that are providing the lessons probably need to have more tools than just the internet and a computer and data. They probably need to have a system of delivering lessons. They probably need to be a bit more innovative and come up with tools and platforms for which they are going to provide e-learning. Now, you may want to know that the issue of e-learning is probably or slightly new to the African continent. Why? Basically because I think in terms of this telecommunication technology, where Africa hasn't moved at the same pace as the rest of the world. Therefore, in our part of the world, we are basically only realizing that the world has gone digital, and so we need to move at the same pace. And so this raises the need for Africa to also jump on the bandwagon and participate in issues of e-learning. Now, remember when I listed the things that you are going to need to access, to participate in e-learning is internet accessibility. And I have a few statistics here based, this is Zambia, this is not Africa. My title is Africa, but the stats I have here are about Zambia. And these stats are coming from the ZICTA report. So remember that we said in order for you to access e-learning, you are going to need internet accessibility or some connectivity. And the statistics show right now that by 2018, only 14% of households, actually individuals, not households, sorry, supposed to be individuals. This was done at individual level. 14% of individuals in Zambia had access to internet. Now, you may want to think this number is too low. Why? Because you live in Lusaka, and Lusaka is only a small share of the Zambian population. So when you walk around, you see everybody's on the internet, on a phone. Well, that probably could be your 8%, and the rest are dotted around districts in Zambia. But actually, as of 2018, this was the picture. And then at household level, only 8% of households own the computer. And then at in terms of smartphones, which actually have helped improve internet use, because you don't necessarily need a computer. So 30% of individuals in 2018 had owned a smartphone. So basically, these are like the statistics for people who should be able to do e-learning if they were required to. Then remember, I also said, I don't know if I mentioned, in order for you to participate in e-learning, you need digital literacy. So digital literacy is knowing how to use a computer. And in Zambia by 2018, only about 6.8% of Zambians were actually digital literate, meaning this is a population that could ably use a computer and hence could participate into e-learning if there was a chance. So what I'm saying in this slide is that although the entire world, especially with the coming of COVID, there's been an acceleration on issues of this, that, and e-learning. I know some people who were supposed to go for their masters, but when COVID hit, they were told to say we are going to do online programs. In my place of work, you travel to work to different places and do stuff, attend training, and now they tell you you are going to do it online. So that's part of e-learning, and it's really, really shaping the future of work in Zambia. So Africa is facing challenges because we have low, poor internet accessibility, low connectivity, low digital literacy, but also in terms of content and professional trainers. If African countries or if African experts were to host e-learning platforms, we will have to create our own content, what we are going to teach. At the moment, I think most of the things are Western based, so we are going online and probably using content that has already been developed. So if we are going to participate in e-learning, adopt it as our education system, we're really going to create content. And for me, here lies the future of work, because creating content, these are actually jobs. This is work. Then we're also going to need professional teachers and trainers. I don't know how many of you on this platform listening to this are students, and you've experienced how difficult it is for some university lecturers, no names mentioned, no school mentioned, but I've seen university lecturers that have labored and suffered to deliver, a course online. So you go there as students, you log in and you are ready to receive, and the man is doing this, the man is clicking this, the man can't switch, can't switch on the mic and all. So these are practical challenges that the entire African continent is facing. While e-learning is sweeping the globe and we are likely to jump on the bandwagon, we face these challenges. Digital literacy, which is very, very low right now. Internet accessibility and connectivity is poor. Then content, we don't have content. We need content creators, as a matter of fact. And then professionally, we really don't, we are yet to develop professional, teachers who can teach stuff online, and everything moves efficiently. Now, could e-learning shape the future of work? Yes, it can. Why? Because e-learning is very useful in the upgrading of the skills of the workforce in an efficient and cost-effective manner. I think Owen had already alluded to all these issues, like why is this really important? Because e-learning is cost-effective. E-learning is probably, takes shorter lifespan. E-learning, for reasons that already indicated, could be cheaper in the initial stages. And here is the thing. So coming back to the future of work. So the future of work, basically, every time we discuss the future of work, we are actually talking about a thing that we don't know. Colleagues, no one can predict the future. No one knows the future. So when we say, could e-learning shape the future of work? It's a very difficult question, because at one time, no one knew. Okay, let me tell you a story quickly as I wind up. So in 2019, mid-2019, I participated in a study for the International Labour Organization on the future of work. And one of the big issues discussed in that report, so it was a global report, different countries were doing the same report. So the Western world were doing their reports, and they were talking about robots taking over people's work and the like. And here in Africa, and in that particular report, our conclusion was that as much as the internet has taken over the world, and in some places robots are taking people's jobs, I think for a country like Zambia, we are not at a stage where we should get very worried about that. Perhaps what we need to do right now is just to lay a foundation, because we have not reached a point where people need to be working from home. We haven't reached a point where people be needing to learn from home. Because we are behind and this we don't have and that and that. And then suddenly COVID hit. And there was a lockdown. Okay, we didn't have an entire lockdown, but there was a partial lockdown where people were taught to work from home. And it was a disaster for small and medium enterprises. It was a disaster for work. It was a disaster for street vendors, because you can't work from home as a street vendor. the Zambian work culture and the majority of the working population that we have are those that need to be on the street, need to be in a market every day in order to make money. Now, e-learning comes in, and for a company, for an SME, that should prepare for what the future can bring, an uncertain future. For now, I think everything is pointing to e-learning. And although Africa doesn't have the requisite infrastructure and the facilities to effectively deliver this and take up this opportunity, I think that it's one of the most useful, efficient, cost-effective way that a company, even a startup, can help upgrade its workforce. So where we are going, perhaps the issues of going on leave for 2 years, you are away from work and you've gone and settled in a boarding school, are perhaps going to be over. So this e-learning, where a company actually identifies the courses that its workforce needs, the company identifies the skills that its workforce needs, and then you are simply allocated a time slot to say, okay, you'll be knocking off 2 hours earlier so that the rest of the 2 hours you can do e-learning so that we have your skills improved in a shorter period of time without having you to leave the workforce. I think Owen had indicated how these are beneficial to an establishment such as a business organization. So in short, yes, e-learning will shape the future of work. Over to you, Peter.
All right. Thank you, Felix, and thank you, Owen, for that good presentations. And I'll just want to ask each of you probably one question, and then we can move on to the people who've joined us if they've got any questions. I will start with Owen. I'll ask you a question. There might be a perception that if you haven't actually sat in a classroom and you have a qualification, that maybe people in the human resource departments do not look at that as a proper qualification, or it's looked at with inverted commas, and like somebody who actually sits in the classroom and gets the qualification than someone who just sits in front of a computer and qualifies and gets a certificate or a diploma or a degree. What is the feel in the human resource circles against people who get their qualifications via the e-learning process? Do you count those qualifications, or are they watered down below those who actually start through a class?
Thanks a lot, Peter. And also thanks, Felix, for that elaborate presentation. In terms of qualification, I see that we tend to have these discussions even in other platforms about which qualification should stand. You know, if somebody went and sat in class, then that is what is more important. No. I think that if people hold such kind of views, I don't think they are placed, those views are well placed. What is key, Peter, is that we should have an employee who has the skills, they have acquired the knowledge. Of course, online training have got their own challenges. We are aware of some students who might just sit and they're giving somebody else to do the coursework for them, and they're submitting online. But even with physical kind of education where you go into universities, we also know that some people give other people to do the assignments for them. So bottom line, an online program is as good as the one that somebody gets physically. Like Felix was saying, instead of having, actually this time for me and a lot of other HR people, what we look at is, do you have the qualification? Whether you got it online or you went and studied there, it's really neither here nor there. The key is, do you have the qualification, and have you acquired some knowledge that we think will be useful for you to do this kind of work? We have had so many, personally, I don't look at whether you got it online or whichever way, as long as you can prove that, yes, the qualification you got has given you knowledge that we think will be useful. And I think that is what is really, really important And as we are saying, we need to start moving with time. We have looked at the benefit of sending even employees, or even those who are not yet employees, if they are studying online, it helps in cushioning the time that they will lose from working. People go on this study leave. Some of them, they are forced to take unpaid study leave because they need to be physically in a classroom. Nowadays, a lot of universities in Zambia, even in other countries, they are doing these things online. Even the University of Zambia here, you are able to register to carry out your course, get your degree, and you present it to the employer. It should be sufficient.
All right. Thank you very much for that response, Owen. Felix, you talked about what is required to have e-learning or to let e-learning flourish. But in the circumstances where, based on your statistics that you presented in Zambia alone, you find that we are then having, well, are we then going to see an inequality gap? Because like you said, people in Lusaka may have access to the internet, while someone in the rural areas might not. And yet we are trying to compete for the same jobs. And if we look at it at a local level, that's Zambia, now at an international level, right? You find they also now have far much more access to resources in terms of e-learning, internet data. So do you think that we are at a disadvantage? And perhaps what are your views in ways in which we can bridge that inequality divide that we are going to see that has been brought about as a result of e-learning?
Thanks, Peter. So firstly, I acknowledge that yes, e-learning is going to bring up education inequalities, actually probably very huge than we've ever seen. Low intra-countries, within countries, and also at international level. So within countries, because we have urban areas that have better facilities, better access to internet. So they are going to have more access to e-learning. Internationally, I mean, we have countries for whom this is a tradition and their knowledge of their digital literacy is high. So obviously they are going to be at an advantage. So really the issue is just to think of how do we move forward. And I think, you know, the government of Zambia is trying their best. So they've adopted what they are calling a smart Zambia. I don't work in the government, so I don't know how far that is, but I'm aware that there's been a very ruthless campaign to try and improve this digital life, because this has become life. So the issue, you see people laying fiber optics here and there. You see Zamtel innovating and also bringing on board, you know, more and more telecom providers, you know, hopefully that things can improve. But also one thing we need to do is also to reduce the cost of internet, because e-learning is on the internet, nowhere else. So we need to, as a country, we probably need to find a way of bringing down the cost of internet. So those basically are the things that can be done, infrastructure. You know, I was expecting in this budget that came out, because of this working at home and all that, you know, we could just zero rate all computers, zero rate all smartphones, so that everybody has access, and then we can, you know, learn online or do whatever we want to do online. Over.
All right, thanks. Felix, I have a question for you by Paul Chanda. So he asks, on the slide that mentions what makes e-learning difficult in Africa, do you think perceived ease of use and perceived social influence is one of those factors affecting e-learning?
Sorry, perceived what?
Perceived ease of use and perceived social influence is one of those factors affecting e-learning. I don't know if I'm getting that maybe people think that something is difficult to use and that's why there's some apathy against using it?
That's really good. You know, so e-learning, I'm really interested in the question that you asked, Kawanda, although it wasn't coming to me. There's an issue of perception, and I like this question. There's an issue of perception, but there's also an issue of changing traditions. I think times are changing, and what if e-learning is the only thing we remain with? So we all have to start, you know, changing and accepting that this is going to be the life. So the perception of ease of use, I mean, there are people who just perceive the internet as elite, so they don't want to do it. I know very educated people. Okay, in the past, not now. I met very educated. Okay, like I knew a professor who couldn't pick emails, doesn't read emails. This professor is not from, this is a professor from the UK, okay? They even want you to say, you have to call him, otherwise he doesn't pick email. So there's that perception of people thinking the internet is difficult, especially in our countries, because of, other than digital literacy, digital illiteracy, there's just general illiteracy. Because you need to read to go on the internet. You need to read, be able to read the word sign in for you to sign in. So it's not only a matter of perceived, there's also just actual illiteracy. If your large population is illiterate, digital literacy will never come. It may not be about perceptions, it's just the real situation. People can't read. My mother can't read an SMS. She can't upgrade her skills online. Over.
Yeah. Okay. This one's for Owen. So Owen, Jackson Casitimus asks, hi, with a system that digitizes teaching tasks, how best would one present such a system to corporates, and how best would one create content that's engaging and of a high standard? So how would you encourage someone who's developed a system to help corporates see the benefit in that system, in that e-learning platform that they have, or that system that they have that enhances teaching tasks?
Okay, so I think with every system that can be there, the key thing is what is this system able to do? Over time, we see people with all sorts of ideas have this system, it can do this. The employers, remember from what we were talking about earlier on, the employer have got the needs that they want to resolve. Therefore, when the employer sits down, they are looking at which ways can I find a way to resolve the training needs of my employees. So the system that people are developing, or anybody is developing, they have to start looking at what is it, first of all, what is it that it is able to do? And once you set what the system is able to do, then you have to start now looking at the content. Now, you can start looking at what kind of content you'll be delivering through your system. You can be general or you can be focused. So for instance, if you look at the system that you are able to use that that brings about which the users are able to benefit on learning about customer service, for instance, that is your pure focus. Or the employees who are in a financial institution, that they can benefit on knowledge around money matters and all these kind of things, and that is the content you have. Or the system is focusing on maybe management and leadership. So the key issue is that the owners of the system, they need to know what is the system able to do, how do the users log in, how does the system track the hours or the activities, how will the system be interactive, would it be allowing for the users to simply log in and they're doing things on their own? So there is a whole lot of work around the creation of the system itself, and then there is a whole lot of work around the content and which the system will be able to deliver. So in certain circumstances, what is also helpful is that when you have a system and you have some companies that you want to approach, try and see what their needs are. You may start having to understand, first of all, you could have a sector, depending on the system that you are creating. Then you say, what sector can this system serve? And then you start meeting with employers or the owners of businesses in those sectors. It helps you to start building a system that might be useful for that sector. As I said, you have to finally make a decision whether you want to be broad or you want to be focused. The decision is really up to the person who's making that system. And when you are meeting with the business owners, they start to tell you, you don't have to always meet the highest person in the company. You can meet with HR people, you can meet with those in maybe in business development and marketing, or any such departments that deal with maybe the training of the employees for the service delivery, or anybody who has the ability who has the powers to discuss matters that relate to employees and the capacity building. So once they give you what they might be looking for, you then can sit down and say, look, we have a system that is able to do this and this. And if there are specific things they're looking for, we have seen it many times where the owner of the system now starts to tailor it to the needs of that institution. And then from there, you can now start looking at how do you clinch the deal? What kind of contracts do you enter into? Is this going to be a one-off thing, or you're going to have to be running this system for them and they are benefiting, and also from your side, you're making money from the system on a longer term basis? So there are all these things that that you have to be looking at as you come up with these systems. What is important is, at the end of the day, let your system be able to make money for you.
All right, thank you very much, Owen. This one is for Felix. Professor Amuka actually is disputing one of your comments regarding the infrastructure. So he says, I believe as Africa, we do have the infrastructure. The biggest challenge that we have, in my view, is the need for mindset change. Would you agree with these assertions?
Interesting assertion from the professor. Well, I think that we need both infrastructure and mindset change. We have infrastructure, but it's not enough. I'll tell you what, internet worsens the further away you move from Lusaka. I travel quite a bit in my job, and the moment you step out of Lusaka, things are not the same. They actually, data providers, recently I was far away in the province and I carried this dongle. It only works in Lusaka. It doesn't work in other places. So I think that, well, we can have infrastructure. It's not enough. It's inadequate. But I also agree that we also need a mindset change. I think a mindset change is required.
Okay, thanks. Rumba Watula has a comment. To help reduce the digital divide, access to devices and internet connectivity in the last mile will be critical. Pretty much what you were alluding to, Felix. Margaret Peary has a question for Owen. I appreciate that HR managers are accepting qualifications from both employees who are learned via e-learning and online classes. But in cases where the courses require hands-on engineering or medical students, how does e-learning help such students?
All right, yeah. So as I said, what is happening now is that a lot of HR managers, they do accept qualifications that are gotten online. And mostly we're talking of business courses or social sciences and things of that nature. Now, when it comes to qualifications that require practicals for students to acquire such qualifications, like the example given around engineering and medicine, we then start to look at how was the setup of this qualification. Usually, when you have universities that are going to offer courses online, then they usually have affiliate universities or institutions where their students will do practicals. So it's not like somebody is just sitting at home and they are studying everything, even where the practicals are required. So in the way that the university will structure the course, there will be certain parts where practicals have to be done, either on attachment with a certain institution or so on. So even for courses where practical work has to be done, normally, as I said, there will be those kind of attachments. But then this is where, as the person who's hiring, you take interest in learning how you ask the student how exactly they got this qualification. I know that these are some of the things that make some people very, very uncomfortable, but then these are the realities. If you can get some comfort around the way the program was structured, then that should give you enough information to make a hiring decision. Unless situations where you can really assess and see that, look, this person was just sitting at home, they have not had the chance, there was no connection between what they were studying, and the university did not make any arrangements for them to either get a practical experience from an affiliate college in the country or a particular institution or company where this student, before they could be awarded the qualification, they were required to have gone to do the attachments. So for such specific cases, the hiring manager will be able to make a call, unless they are really not comfortable.
Oh, and I'll link that to another question from Ron Sambo. So he says, some people feel learning should be a total package that should include travel, accommodation, allowances, etc. How can HR and other business leaders start shifting the mindset of employees to focus more on the benefits that come with acquisition of knowledge and information, rather than on other perceived benefits as exemplified?
I like what has been highlighted actually. So
Tough one.
if you heard one of the things I said at the very beginning, this is a challenge that a lot of HR professionals have to deal with, because there is some perception around training and development programs where some people may choose. You will see them fighting that I need to go for this training and this training. But bottom line, all they are looking for is, a vacation to be away, away from work. Now we are going on holiday. They get the allowances, so they are going to relax on the cost of the employer. So it is something that will take a bit of time to change. But I do think that where the employer is interested in employees upskilling, then the employer starts to look at what the exact courses or training that my employees will need. Therefore, they engage the employees that it's important that you do this kind of course or this kind of training because it adds it brings value in this particular way. So, if for instance you see that your employees will need now more training around, as I said, around maybe customer service, you are engaging them, and there is a goal to it. Most of the trainings that we see are very problematic. Are those programs which are just, for instance, championed by an employee, and the employer has not even figured out how exactly this training will benefit the employer, but either way they go ahead and approve. What is important is that the training that we are sending employees to should be for the benefit of the employer and the employee, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that the employee has got the skills that are required. So it's a cultural change. But with what has started happening, with more people now doing things online, we expect that people start slowly to see that. Remember, there was a cost implication that I was talking about. If you can start sending more and more people to do online programs, and their skills are being enhanced, the others who might have been reluctant because they just wanted to get, some allowances, they start to see, oh, we are remaining behind, and they start to take the training, online training or the e-learning more serious. So it's a matter of cultural change. It takes time, but I think we'll get there.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those which is taking ownership of your own learning. I once had a supervisor who said, no one can take the education away from you once you've got it and once you've got the skills. So make the most of the opportunity and the chance to actually learn. So maybe it's time that employees do take and realize that this is for their own good, not necessarily, even though it will benefit the employer, but ultimately wherever they go, they'll still have the skill and the knowledge. We'll probably conclude with one final question for Felix, and this is from Jackson. He says, with the inequality caused by e-learning, how important do you think digital systems that come with offline features to ensure access regardless of internet, especially in rural areas, would help?
Very interesting. I saw this question in the chat, and I've been, itching to answer it. The systems that come with an offline feature start with an online feature. You have to go online first, then give you an offline option. So you can't start with offline.
Yeah.
So bottom line, you still need the internet, then it will give you an offline feature. So unless you want to save on your data, but you still need the internet initially for there to be an offline feature.
But could that maybe help in, I mean, obviously it's a cost issue.
It's a cost issue. Well, it can help, but it doesn't save you from, putting up the infrastructure that I was talking about, reducing the cost of the internet, making gadgets affordable, because you have to go online first. Then it tells you to select an offline feature. So you can't access the internet entirely offline.
Okay.
Yeah, but it surely can. I mean, maybe for low cost, those who don't have money, tell them immediately you log in, select the offline, then you can access the material offline. But the entry point is online.
All right, thank you. So maybe in winding up, I will ask both of you this question. In light of COVID, if you would have a wish and a bright future expectation of what the future of work and e-learning would look like in Zambia, what would that be? Owen?
Already we have, I don't think that e-learning is really coming because of COVID, but it has accelerated it in a way. We had e-learning even before COVID. And I know that there will be times, even in other places where I've been, where colleagues will come with their systems and they are showing, you can do e-learning like this. For a lot of us in those days, you look at it and you're trying to be reluctant to make decisions. But I think with where we are going, with what has happened, we clearly see that e-learning is becoming more and more important. And I do think the responsibility lies on management of in a company to see that what is it, first of all, we want to get out of the training of our employees, and then how do we do it? Clearly, you can see that by using the route of e-learning, you save your costs, and it also does not really disrupt your operations that much. And so then it is the responsibility of the employer now to see what resources should they provide to help the employees to access e-learning. So if it means starting to slowly invest in internet provision, computers, there has to be a deliberate policy around how you provide resources to support your employees to do e-learning, especially for those programs that you want to run within the company. For programs that the employees will have to access from maybe other universities or other trainers, that is also another different issue. But the key is the employer has to look at the resources that they have to provide. Because look, I know that from our colleagues in finance departments, usually we have these fights where they be looking at the cost implication. But then you have to see if you invested in spending a little bit of resources to help your employees have the internet or the computers or some workspace, the workstation where they can do this, you have cut off the other costs that come with the sending to people, like the allowances that people like a lot. So it's a responsibility of the employer to see how best they provide the resources for e-learning.
Okay. Alex?
So for me, quickly, there's a term we call lifelong learning. That term means that education is a lifetime activity. It's something you do for the rest of your life. And traditionally, what we know, in order for you to achieve, a population that can learn throughout their life, we have what we call foundational skills. And these are literacy and numeracy. So in the Zambian education system, literacy is like one of the things you need to achieve traditionally. also numeracy, ability to count, then ability to read. So there and then we know that you can take on almost any education challenge in your life. Now, for the future, what I want to see, Peter, like you ask, is a third foundational skill introduced, which is digital literacy. Everybody has to know how to use a computer. Everybody has to know how to use a smartphone. Everybody, and I mean everybody. Then e-learning will be easy for us to adopt at home, in the workplace, wherever you go. So really the issue is, other than just, building infrastructure and the like, which the professor said is enough, I think we need digital literacy. At grade 1, let's start teaching computers. And this is the place where I tell people, if your son or your child, 1 year old, 2 year old, picks up your smartphone, don't shout, hey, no. Let them start the journey. Because the future of this world is in digital issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Owen and Felix, for that. In a closing, Ananaya has given us, says, on the cost of e-learning, all computers imported have zero duty at the moment. You only pay VAT. The cost of e-learning should not be the same as the cost of traditional training if properly designed and marketed for programs that are targeted on the masses. Thank you for that comment, Ananaya. And thank you everybody else for joining us. Thank you, Felix, and thank you, Owen, for your time. I know that it's been long since the invitation went out in March, but finally I'm glad that we've been able to have this EdTech meetup. And we are aiming to be having this meetup more regularly now. I think most likely they will continue being on Zoom. Our next EdTech meetup is on 20th October. We'll send out an invitation in the poster. Please register for that as well. And we've recorded this session. You can find it on the BongoHive website, bongohive.co.zm, under the webinar section. It will be uploaded there in the next, probably tomorrow or by Friday, and you'll be able to access it. In the meantime, thank you everybody for joining us, for spending your time with us, and we'll see you at the next EdTech meetup. Thank you, Owen, and thank you, Felix, for according us this time, and we've had a wonderful time this evening. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night, and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate.
Thank you. Bye-bye.